Good to see you today, and welcome back to the show. It's Bob Stefanowski.
Thanks for having me on, Vin.
Republican
Great to see you.
Gubernatorial candidate.
Yeah.
Bob Stefanowski. I'm used to seeing you flanked by Tom Scott, and yet that is not the case today.
No, he's still with us, still fighting the fight.
Yeah. Now, you are still largely referred to as the outsider, as far as which is interesting because we've got our fair share of outsiders, I think, but you're the main one, especially because you're steering clear of these debates and all of that stuff. How does that go over as far as Romano and the whole party's concerned?
Listen, I think people respect the debate process or the convention process, but people also respect that I'm going out directly to the 450,000 registered Republicans. I get a big leg up with 12,000 signatures going into the primary. I just think it's important that the broader population has an input into who's on the ballot, the Republican ballot. This is an incredibly important election for us. I fully respect the delegate process, but I'm out there walking door to door. I'm going to have broad support going into this primary event.
Yeah. Now, some would suggest, elephant in the room, that it's, he doesn't, the heat of Tim Herbst, who might be smoking a cigar. You don't want to face who he's up against.
I don't get involved in that nonsense. I'm going to the people. I'm focused on policy. I've rolled out an economic plan to cut taxes. If these other guys want to snipe at each other, that's fine. We got big problems in the state. We should be focused on the issues. We should be focused on lowering taxes, preventing the exodus of people from this state. That's what we should be talking about right now.
Yeah, and I debate exodus often. I don't like to. I don't want to. I got two small kids who love where they've been growing up and love their friends, and it just hasn't come to pass. In radio, you never know, and that some market could come a calling. But the state, I feel as if the direction, Dan Malloy, I believe in particular, although now I guess the new narrative is Roland is the one who started all this. And I don't even necessarily want to bicker with that. All I know is I agree with what you just said as far as this is an incredibly important election. I have a 15-year-old. The older of my two is going to be going into her sophomore year at high school. His successor, Malloy's successor, is key to what happens to her college-wise.
Absolutely.
I mean, what do you think about this whole Dreamers thing that just went down and his decision there?
Well, listen, I think it goes back to the economy. I grew up in New Haven. I grew up 10 miles from here. My dad, hi, Dad, he's 87. He lives in the same house he's lived in for 50 years.
That was kind of my goal.
I went to the public schools. I got a good education. I was chief financial officer at UBS. I was a senior officer at GE. This state created opportunity for me. I got 3 daughters now, Vin. They don't have that opportunity. That's one of the reasons I'm running. This guy, Malloy, has killed this economy. He's killed the opportunity for young people.
Yeah.
And we can get it back. I've been turning around companies in the corporate sector for 30 years, but we need a leader. Nobody wants a politician this time around. They're tired of politicians. I'm an outsider who's actually run stuff with a plan, and we can turn it around. We absolutely can, Vin.
Yeah. And do you mind my asking? I know it's personal stuff, and you don't have to. But you say you have three kids. Ages?
24, 19, and 15.
Oh,
and
you're
they're all
a 15-year-old
girls.
too, so you're in the mix too. As far as look, I mean, I don't want to get in my kids' way as far as if their dream winds up here or there, but I want Connecticut to be an option if they want it to be an option. If the school they love is here, I don't want them to be last in line for a variety of bleeding heart reasons. I want it all to be fair.
Yep.
And if they want to stay here and live a block over from Dad, or maybe have a house that has a guest room just for Dad, I want that to be an option too.
With a pool table,
So be it. I think my daughter would go that distance with me. I'm seeing a lot of friends who got started a little bit earlier than I, having a tough time. Their kids are being basically plucked from their grasp, in the sense that they're sad. The kids are crying like this is where the job is. I've got to take it. I got out of college 3 years ago, and I'm moving, to the Midwest. I gotta. And then one friend of mine actually followed. Said we couldn't take it. We're moving there, and he and his wife are right now planning on moving to where their daughter moved to because she had to.
I'm 100% with you. I'm never going to force my girls to stay in Connecticut, but they should at least have the option. Yeah. When I graduated from Fairfield U in 1984, I was working at Price Waterhouse in Hartford within 3 weeks. It was a good-paying job.
Yeah.
We used to go to Whalers game. The city had some vibrancy to it.
Sure.
Now kids, they go to Boston and New York to have any fun. We got to get these cities back on track.
That's exactly it. Now, as far as the job opportunities being here for college graduates, what's the road back to that? What's your idea as far as the road back to that?
Well, I fundamentally believe it starts with tax policy. I did a lot of work with Art Laffer. Art Laffer was Ronald Reagan's chief economist. We rolled out a plan. We got to get rid of the state income tax over time. The estate tax is driving people out of here. The amount of regulation in this state, we got to get the economy moving again. And I've done it before. If you can start to chip away. But what do? We give Hartford $250, $300 million of money every year. We need to file Hartford for bankruptcy. I'm sad to say it. But until we get a governor that's going to make some tough decisions and stop kicking the can down the road, we're not going to start the recovery. Yeah. So I think somebody from the outside world that grew up in New Haven, that's had tough discussions. I know how to negotiate. I know how to lead. We'll go up there and we'll turn this place upside down. We got to rip the Band-Aid off. And there's too many politicians running around saying what they need to say to get reelected. Yeah. And I'm not going to do that. Yeah. If I don't get reelected, I'm okay with that. But if I got to turn the state back in the right directions for 4 years, I don't want to have to go down to Florida to see my grandkids someday. Part of it's selfish.
Yeah. Oh, that's it. I feel that way too. But it's supposed to be about option. I always talk about when I was a kid. Connecticut was where everybody retired to. I'll never forget watching I Love Lucy. And towards the end, it's like they bought a home in Connecticut.
Exactly.
We used to be where people retired to. Now we're the state where nobody can retire from.
That's exactly right.
Or they're being forced to really early. To that end, I want to talk to you about pensions and what's happening with that, especially as far as state employees are concerned. We've got Bob Stefanowski in with us. Aaron Stewart made a little bit of noise announcing who she'd like to is going to be by her side, lieutenant governor situation. But there's been rumors for a while now that Ganem somehow is going to have Harp on his ticket. Anybody?
It's too early. We've got to see who gets through the convention, who gets on the ballot.
Really?
There's some good LG candidates out there, so we'll watch it for a while.
Yeah. Now, when we went to break, we were talking about the whole pension situation and how that did play a role in Connecticut's fiscal nosedive, if you will.
It's played a big role.
It has. Yeah. It's been a tough spot for me as a 50-year-old and as a guy who, many of my friends, they got that state job at 20. I remember them saying things to me, too, Bob. It was really interesting. Now, I'm set for life and this pension. I didn't even understand what a pension was. I'm 20 years old. And I remember thinking, so this is where you're going to be now. You just decided where you're going to be for the next 40 years of your life. I don't know why you would do that so young.
Yeah.
I feel for them because they're now being elbowed out at 48 years old and not getting what they were promised. But at the same time, it was an absurd promise to be made in the first place.
Yeah. Well, I think it comes down to leadership. I'm sympathetic as well. They were promised stuff, rightly or wrongly. They were promised it. But when you got $100 billion underfunded plan, you're not doing the pension people any good. You're not doing the state any good. We got to recut it and figure out something that's fair. Try to make people feel secure in their retirement. But if we don't do anything, the checks are going to start bouncing. And you're not doing the union employees any good by doing that either. Yeah. And it's classic of this governor, Malloy, rather than facing the issue, he's not being the friend of the unions by telling them there's no problem. There is a problem. Yeah. And until somebody with some leadership steps up and start to address the problems and treat people fairly, that's how we're going to turn the state around. Yeah. And I've been doing it for 30 years.
Yeah, you've been. The record speaks for itself. As far as Malloy's concerned, too, it's frustrating for so many of them because and it's a politician's racket. I get it. I'm friend to the union. I'm friend to you. I'm standing by you. Then he takes their legs out from under them and hires 5 judges 2 days later.
I mean, it just gets back to if you're a politician and your primary motivation, and for most politicians it is to get reelected, you're not going to act in the way you need to run. The state of Connecticut is a $40 billion business at the end of the day. I was CFO of a $500 billion business at UBS. You got to have tough discussions. You got to face the issues, and that's how we're going to turn this state around, by starting to address the thing Malloy and these Democratic politicians up in Hartford have been ignoring for 8 years now.
How big a role do you think, Bob, Washington plays in what's going on here come November? These midterm elections, the blue and the red, and we need this many seats. Do you think this trickles down and affects this very important election and the fact that a lot of people, it's got to be blue. It's got to be blue for the bigger picture. My bigger picture is Connecticut.
Yeah. The people I talk to around the state, it's local issues right now.
Yeah. That's where I'm at.
As important as getting a Republican governor is getting a majority in the House and the Senate in the state. That's going to be massive, and we got to focus on that. The Democrats are going to try to talk about everything other than the facts, which the state economy is the worst in the entire nation.
Absolutely.
And every time they bring up Trump or Washington, we're going to pivot back to look at this economy. That's what people are concerned about. Who is best positioned to turn around this 8 years of horrible economic policy that Malloy has undergone? Yeah. And I've got the plan to do it. It's endorsed by the best economist ever, and I got the leadership to drive it through the system, and I'm not a politician.
Yeah. Have you been you're a lifelong Republican, always affiliated with the
there was
Republican
a few
Party?
months I was a Democrat. I hated what I saw, but for 30 years I've been a Republican.
No,
I got a
curious.
Republican plan coming out.
Months. Most people say,
it lasted about
a year and a half in my early 20s.
It lasted about 60 days to see that my tax cutting and my fiscal discipline was not going to play well.
It's interesting.
It's a Republican philosophy.
Yeah. Do you think that there's a problem? And again, we're on with Bob Stefanowski, and we're getting close to crunch time. Isn't there, what is it, Foxwoods, 2 weeks?
Next week.
Is it next week?
Gubernatorial is a week from Saturday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think there's anything to I mean, he's now topped the charts. Malloy, now the worst governor in the country, which is really, there's a part of me as a radio host that, what ammunition, what material I've got for that. But as a guy born and raised in Connecticut, there's an embarrassment and a frustration in that, too. Yeah. But do you think that lends itself to a sort of, I know I can do better than that, and that's why there's so many hats in this ring?
I think that's partial. I think the other part, Vin, is the taxpayers are paying for this election. I'm funding a campaign by going out and asking people to voluntarily contribute to my campaign. Most of the other candidates are using taxpayer money, $1.2 million for the primary and $6 million for the general. I think the reason we got so many candidates is if the taxpayers are paying for it, why not run?
Yeah.
As opposed to doing it the hard way and raising money. If I'm the candidate, I'm going to save the taxpayer $7 million before I'm even in office. I think the CEP program where we're paying for politicians to run around and buy bumper stickers about how we should be more fiscally disciplined is the ultimate in hypocrisy.
Jeez, I mean, that's something people really need to hear.
Most people don't know. It's going to cost $30 million. Well, I spent $16 million to get elected 2 times of taxpayer money.
Yeah.
And now we're doing it again. And most of your listeners, I bet, don't even know they're paying for this election.
That's a great point. Where can people, outside of hopping on your website, anything between now and Foxwoods where they can see you, where you're going
to... Well, I'm going to be going door to door to 12,000 people.
Yeah.
We're very big on Facebook. We got tens of thousands of listeners or viewers. There's going to be some debates coming up after the field narrow, so I'm going to participate in those. And I'm going across the state. So the best place to look actually is bobforgovernor.com to see upcoming events. Yeah. Get on our Facebook. We're very good at responding to that stuff. But we got a lot of momentum. The TV commercial, my kids tell me I look a lot better on TV than in person, but that's
great.
Okay.
It really resonates, I thought. It's a great spot.
That's really getting the word out.
Okay.
So far, so good.
That's great. I want people to check out Bob Stefanowski online. And great seeing you again. And we'll talk again soon.
Thank you very much.